Admit it, Jim. Jim, admit that 13,099 murders have been led into this country. That's Corey, 4 murderers for every single county in America. You don't think that Corey, that's a problem?
Border crossings are down and crime is down in this country. But
crime is not down in this country. The FBI
I asked you at the
lied,
beginning
Jim,
of this interview, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? I just asked you whether Haitian migrants are eating dogs and cats in Springfield. You won't admit the truth on either of those questions. I want to ask you about something that
13,000 murderers have come into the country.
The 13,000 number is false, by the way. The 13,000 number is false.
Why is it false, Jim? If the government's own data says that, CBP's own data put this out last week. So why do you say it's false if the government put out? By the way, this is the Biden-Harris administration who put out.
The government also says border crossings are down.
But Jim, you just said that was a false number. How do you get to that? What data do you have that says Customs and Border Protection is wrong?
Yeah, I also want to ask you about something that Trump said.
No, but Jim, you just said it was wrong.
Yeah, Jim, what data do you have that says Customs and Border Protection is wrong? That's Corey Lewandowski unloading on the borderline illiterate Jim Acosta for not acknowledging the epidemic of convicted murderers entering our country. And gang, what you just saw there was merely the tip of the iceberg. The liberal media is melting down this week. They're officially losing the narrative as the Trump train is absolutely crushing them repeatedly in fact-checking, and it's absolutely glorious to watch them implode. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we dive right in here, gang, obviously Americans are tired and frustrated by a stalling economy, inflation, endless wars, and the relentless assault on our values. But thankfully, there are companies like Patriot Mobile that still believe in America and our Constitution. I'm proud to partner with Patriot Mobile because they're on the front lines fighting for the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our military and first responder heroes. Take a stand for conservative causes and put America first by switching to Patriot Mobile today. You'll get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile operates across all 3 major networks. Plus, they back their service with a coverage guarantee. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will find the best plan for your needs. Keep your phone number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Go to patriotmobile.com/Turley Talks or call them at 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. Right now, get a free month, a whole free month when you use the offer code Turley Talks. Don't forget that. Use Turley Talks. You get a free month. Don't get fooled by other providers pretending to share your values or have the same coverage. They don't and they can't. Join me. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile. This week may really go down in history as the week that the legacy media finally and officially and collectively lost it. It's a whole number of factors behind it, of course. For sure, TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, being chief among them. But something happened with J.D. Vance this week. Something happened in that debate. Something just snapped, particularly at MSNBC. Take a look.
Yeah, and I actually think if you're a woman, that might be the worst moment J.D. Vance had, because he was going to mansplain right over that mute button. He was, and again, I don't pretend to know how everyone will react to this. I think that a lot of women in positions of authority that should command respect just by virtue of that dynamic will see themselves in some dude that disrespected them and talked over. I mean, there was a moment like that with then vice presidential in the Harris-Pence debate.
That one of these candidates is much slicker than the other, is a much more practiced kind of professional debate style speaker, and the other candidate won. There was one bad moment for Tim Walz in this debate where he got mixed up and embarrassed in answering a question about exactly what month he had been in China in relation to the Tiananmen Square protest.
It seems to me if the goal is to make Tim Walz your neighbor, your Midwest neighbor, a nice guy, actually, despite all the things we're saying this morning, it's mission accomplished. And Tim Walz got exactly what he needed out of this, and so did Kamala Harris.
We talked about this a little bit when we were sitting over there waiting. I think Tim Walz is one of the best communicators out there in Democratic politics. And he propelled himself onto the ticket because he is such an effective, good communicator.
Now, what's so fascinating there is that it's patently obvious that no one there on any of those panels, no one actually believed a word they said. No one believed a single syllable coming out of their own mouths. They wanted to. They wanted to believe it. They were hoping beyond hope that their rabid TDS-infected audience would believe it. But they knew, make no mistake, they knew they were spewing out total and complete BS. Every single one of them. I'll put it another way. Every single one of them were lying to their dwindling audience. When you're left with trying to reframe J.D. Vance's epic takedown, his epic fact-checking of those two sorry excuses for moderators, when you're left with trying to reframe that as mansplaining, you're just admitting you got nothing. Or, to put it more accurately, you've only got an absurd notion that would only appeal to an equally absurd audience. Things are so bad. The legacy media is so desperate that Politico, which is nothing more than a blatant propagandist rag, it should just be called propagando. Propagando, I kid you not, actually tried to make the argument that Tim Waltz's wide eyes showed his passion. I mean, in fact, it got worse. Not only did the woke activists at Politico, Propagando, claim that Tim Waltz's eyes showed passion, they actually claimed J.D. Vance's beard signaled his own toxic masculinity. Again, I mean, how anyone with simply the most basic cognitive health could continue reading this drivel is beyond me. Speaking of drivel, things got even worse for borderline illiterates over at MSNBC. Check out this exchange, this absolutely hilarious exchange when MSNBC brought on a never-Trumper, someone who was actually a witness for one of the Trump impeachment trials. They brought him on, obviously expecting him to bash President Trump. That was clearly their intention. But watch what happened.
A no for you after that. Why was it important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct? And do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it, and I'll tell you why. I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies, and I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you
and it has to.
Ambassador, I'll let you finish, but this is so striking. You said it was a no for me after that, after January 6th.
I did.
And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me. It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
But the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy.
But I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
So I want to ask Sarah,
if you want to ask me what those are, I'm happy.
That MSNBC host was aghast. He couldn't believe his ears. And of course, he immediately tried to run interference. He interrupted his guest's answer to try to redirect him to the answer that the lunatics at MSNBC were expecting him to give, to bash Trump. And instead, he doubled down. Yes, I was an anti-Trumper. Yes, I was as never Trump as any one of you, but what the Democrats are imposing on our nation is an existential threat to our republic that frankly makes J6 pale by comparison. So I'm supporting Trump. Talk about losing the narrative. I mean, that was beyond epic. And speaking of, I want to circle back Psaki with that CNN interview. When Jim Acosta was just getting completely ravaged by Corey Lewandowski, Acosta was losing the argument so badly. Well, look at just play it.
You know what I can say, Jim? I can say that 13,099 murderers were let into this country, 16,000 rapists, 425,000 people in the last 4 years have been let into this country by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's own Customs and Border Protection that are running around this country, Jim.
The other thing, too, it's Kamala Harris.
Crimes.
I don't know. Why do you guys say Kamala? It's Kamala Harris.
Jim, we know that they're committing crimes against Americans. Why can't these individuals talk about the individuals who've been killed by illegal immigrants? 13,099 murderers have been let into this country by this administration's own accounting, and you guys don't want to talk about it.
You literally can't make this stuff up. You literally... I mean, if I had told you that CNN had a guest on who started citing all of these shocking statistics about the number of convicted murderers and rapists that have crossed our southern border, and that those statistics came straight from Kamala Harris's own administration. If I was telling you that, and then I said, and then the CNN host responded to those shocking statistics by taking issue with how the guest pronounced Kamala's name, you wouldn't believe me. You wouldn't believe. CNN could not possibly, in any conceivable universe, be that absurd. Fortunately, there is some respite to the madness. Here's Scott Jennings of CNN calling out his own network for their blatant and pathetic and obvious bias.
Okay, so everybody seems to be worried about J.D. Vance and dishonesty, or Donald Trump and dishonesty. I never hear the same concern about Harris and the lies that she tells about Trump, or in Waltz himself, who gave the most disastrous response to a question about his own dishonesty about being in Tiananmen Square that I've ever heard.
So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in
a debate. He also did the same thing with Dana Bash when questioned about dishonesty a couple of months ago. And effectively what he has said is, sorry, guys, I'm too dumb to tell the truth. I mean, he called himself a knucklehead.
I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
I have bad grammar. This is a guy who holds himself up to be a school teacher and a coach. Is that the life lesson he's giving the kids that are under his care? Hey, you can lie, and then you can just kind of slough it off as being, you know, too dumb to tell the truth. I think we spend 99% of our time going down rabbit holes about Vance and Trump and honesty in campaigns, and we spend no time at all holding Waltz and Harris to the same standard, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, the awesome news here, gang, is everything that we just saw here in this video, all these clips, clearly demonstrate that the media is totally exasperated. They recognize they have lost the narrative. The legacy media, I mean, you have to... Let's empathize with them a little bit, shall we? The legacy media for the last 8 years has had but one goal and one purpose that have unified them for the last 8 years. And what was that one goal, one purpose, one imperative? It was to destroy Donald Trump. That's it. For these last 8 years, that has been the singular goal among every single legacy media outlet. Destroy Donald Trump. And, of course, by implication, destroy the MAGA movement. And now, after 8 years of 24/7 negative coverage, after cheerleading all the lawfare, after deliberately ghosting 2 assassination attempts on his life, even going so far as to blame the last one on Trump, well, you know, his rhetoric. After all that, to their total disbelief Trump, right now, this very moment, is stronger than ever. Trump is in a stronger position to win the White House than he has ever been, either in 2016 or 2020. And the legacy media is utterly beside themselves. They are shell-shocked. And it shows. Make no mistake, years from now, the desperation they've begun to show of late will indeed be the stuff of legend.